hypocrisy. And at least 52 people have been reported dead after Hurricane Helene swept through southeastern states of America. Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political and PR consultant, Leon Emirali, and the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder. Welcome and great to see both of you. So to the front pages then, Sunday's papers. The Observer reports on Iran threatening vengeance against Israel over the assassination of Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. The Sunday Times leads with the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, claiming that Nasrallah's death will change the balance of power in the Middle East. Sunday Telegraph reports on Labour MP Rosie Duffield leaving the party, calling Sir Keir Starmer a hypocrite for accepting expensive gifts from donors while cutting winter fuel payments. The Sunday Express reports that Kemi Badenoch, a Tory leadership candidate, of course, wants to dismantle human rights laws to curb migrant boats. The Sunday People reports that British detectives have joined the probe into sex abuse claims against music mogul Sean Combs. The Sunday Mirror reports that families of the Nottingham knife rampage victims have criticised a BBC show for what they claim are inaccuracies and sympathy towards the killer's family. A reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out those front pages while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Leon and to Nancy. Welcome to both of you. And of course, seismic changes in the Middle East with the death confirmed by both Israel and Hezbollah of Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Talking about the balance of power shift by the Israeli leader today. But this really is significant, isn't it? And what happens next? We wait and see.
Yeah, incredibly significant. This has been, a leader who's been in for more than 30 years of Hezbollah. So a long-standing leader there. And look, on one side, we can take solace that a terrorist leader has been eliminated, but at what cost? And what is the collateral damage of this particular operation and indeed the conflict? We're looking at numbers that say potentially 50,000 people are going to be fleeing Lebanon as a result of this. We've obviously seen a number of civilian lives being lost, as well as those of those terrorist targets that the Israeli government are targeting. So a big shift, big changes in that region again, and it appears that we're on the brink of another escalation, which is worrying for everyone.
Yes, and the figures we've had from the Lebanese government today suggests 1 million people have been internally displaced. Clearly a lot moving from southern Lebanon, and now 1,000 people have been killed and 6,000 wounded in the last 2 weeks. This started, of course, with the extraordinary pagers exploding, the technology, the level of infiltration evident by Israel. The question is now about Iran, because Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran, and the suggestion, possibly that Iran's supreme leader has himself gone into hiding, such is the fear of what Israel might know. But what Iran does is critical to what happens next.
Absolutely. And I think they've even, the person they've managed to take out now and assassinate, he was in hiding, wasn't he? He was believed to have been sort of underground. But as you say, how many thousands of lives have to be sacrificed before both sides can actually take a step forward? I know Israel are saying this is a massive thing for them. It's a historic turning point, they're saying. But I think actually the human cost is hard to get away from, and it's just going to get worse. People are now, we've been on the brink for a while. It feels like actually that has tipped now, because Iran probably aren't going to sit back and do anything. We've got America that is feeling pretty powerless. It's looking pretty powerless. And actually, Israel just keeps marching on. Not everybody in Israel supports this, but it's just the human cost is absolutely staggering.
Yes, and Joe Biden speaking, suggesting this is a measure of justice after, 3 decades of what, you described as terrorism, reviled by many, obviously, not least in Syria, where Hezbollah backed the work of President Assad in suppressing the Arab Spring, but loved by his followers, of which there are thousands in Lebanon still, and thousands, or the military arsenal runs to thousands. So what happens internally? Some suggesting Lebanon should now free itself of Hezbollah after decades of a state within a state. Whether that is possible, given the thousands of militants who are in Lebanon, We don't know.
We don't know, and you know, Hezbollah are severely weakened, but they have not gone away. And as you say, that arsenal of weaponry is still significant. And I think that's why now all eyes will be on Tehran, all eyes will be on what happens next with the Iranian response. And, you know, we have to say that throughout this conflict, the Iranian government have been relatively constrained. You know, there's been opportunities for them to retaliate in far greater magnitude than they have. Who knows what will come after this? But I think the key thing is what's going on in Washington, D.C., because ultimately Netanyahu has no reason to listen to Biden. They're going to wait to see what happens with this knife-edge election in November. And obviously, if it's Harris, then perhaps it'll be more of the same. If it's Trump, we may well see another shift in this conflict and to see what happens there. So we are at a stalemate. But just to reiterate again what Nancy says, the human cost of this is huge. And we have to bear that in mind when discussing this story. It's been going on now for nearly a year, October the 7th, October the 8th, marking the retaliation from Israel. Many lives lost on all sides, and, you know, that is a tragedy for everyone involved.
And I think for the future, not about what's going to happen in the next weeks or months, but we are talking about a whole generation, several generations who are growing up as children with absolutely nothing. They're seeing their friends die, they're seeing their family die. That does not warm you to a peaceful life, and I think it's really actually dangerous. And for as long as we can all remember this as being a problem, I don't think this response is going to make it any better. Talking is the way forward, and they're not doing it, are they?
Yes, and for Israel, you know, is the death of Nasrallah enough? Certainly, the Israeli Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, has been meeting on Saturday night to see about the possibility of expanding Israel's military offensive on its northern front. We had pictures today showing, you know, the tanks massing just south of Lebanon. So whether they think an incursion is what is required, these are the pictures, as you can see, then we also wait to see. But if there was a ceasefire agreed, Hezbollah always said its actions would end if there was a ceasefire for Gaza. Same with Yemen's Houthis as well, who've fired again today. Then would that cause the regional escalation to calm? That's another possibility, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly the hope, isn't it, and the aspiration that we find a pathway to a ceasefire. But I think up to this point, we just haven't seen that being likely. And we've had sort of false starts and potential for ceasefires being discussed, but it just doesn't seem that either side of this conflict are willing to get round the negotiating table, because ultimately there are a number of Israeli hostages that need to be released for that to happen. Is that likely? Probably not. And there's, of course, the domestic political situation within Israel, which is that Benjamin Netanyahu is not terribly popular, and perhaps this conflict is helping him bolster his support at home in Israel as a means of shoring up his own political position. So, for me, I just can't see a ceasefire being realistic at this point when tensions are so high.
Yes, and I suppose the point is October the 7th shows Israel's military as weakened and vulnerable, and what the Lebanon situation with the pagers, walkie-talkies, Nasrallah and all the other Hezbollah commanders has done has showed them strong. It's a strong deterrent for Israel. You know, a year soon, October the 7th. Also that week, it'll be 100 days for the Labour Party. So let's move on to domestic matters, shall we? And an excoriating letter from Rosie Duffield, who talks about his technocratic style squandering Labour's lead. I mean, it's an extraordinary letter without actually having served 100 days as Prime Minister.
At this stage, you're right. It is, I mean, it's absolutely scathing. I don't think it's as simple as some of the headlines make it out. I don't think this is just about what clothes he's had for free, although we're all staggered by that. I don't think it's even just about the winter fuel cuts or free, but I don't think genuinely they get on. But I think also she knows that public opinion is on her side when it comes to anybody who says, I can't believe how terrible the Tories were. Weren't they sleazy and corrupt? And then he's doing exactly the same thing, and nobody cares if it's within the rules. If it's within the rules are wrong. And he has the power to change that. And I'm just really saddened that we've got a new government that comes out and is so out of touch. How have we got there so quickly?
Well, that's exactly the point. She says, in particular, the recent... Oh, no, hold on. As Prime Minister, your managerial and technocratic approach and lack of basic politics and political instincts have come crashing down on us as a party after we worked so hard, promised so much and waited a long 14 years to be mandated by the British public to return to power. I mean, it goes on and on about the hypocrisy of it, but that lack of political, you know, sensitivity reactivity is what you really feel as you read this letter.
I mean, the big problem with the last few governments was people felt they were completely different. They weren't like us. And actually, we've got a brand new one who promised different, and here they are exactly the same. What is the difference? And it just sums up everybody who didn't bother to vote because they're all as bad as each other. Here's your proof within 100 days.
This is the problem when you run on a holier-than-thou ticket, which obviously Labour did, and you are going to come under scrutiny. And, you know, clearly this is a blow for Keir Starmer. It's been a bad week for Keir Starmer, probably the worst of his short reign so far. And for Rosie Duffield to quit, OK, it's not going to make a dent in his huge majority, but it is pointing to a disunited Labour Party. And I think as this Parliament runs on, as the political issues pile up, you know, there's going to be some headaches for Keir Starmer going forward, and this might just be the least of his worries.
Yeah, and whether it has an impact on the budget as well, you know, whether it's toned down in any way. We'll have to wait and see after the non-DOMs will make no money suggestion a few days ago. Lots more still to come. We'll talk about the other side, the Tories, the leadership hopefuls, and the one who's vowing to dismantle human rights laws to curb migrant boats. Back in a minute.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I'm based in Belfast, a city transformed by peace, but still struggling with its past. Politically, the two sides are as far apart as ever, and it's over that question of who has sovereignty in Northern Ireland, the very issue that's been the source of tension here for generations. It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century. I've spent 25 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
We help you understand the world with us.
Today, we have reached an agreement with the Conservative Party on support for government in Parliament.
We already know what the government gets out of this deal. What exactly does the DUP get out of it? Well, £1.5 billion. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record. You can't live in a place like this and not appreciate the environment.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview, joined once again by the political and PR consultant Leon Emirali and the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder. Welcome back to both of you. Another party conference coming up, this time the Conservatives. Rishi Sunak has already arrived. It feels like a blast from the past, doesn't it? But there we are. Anyway, in the meantime, the four candidates who remain in the race are out in the Sunday papers. This is... Oh, hold on. Oh, we want to see the Sunday Express at this point, but it doesn't matter. Kemi's vow to stop the boats and crush Tory leadership favourite Robert Jenrick is their exclusive, an interview. I feel like stop the boats is something we've heard a lot of. Does she have any solutions? Because elsewhere, there's more quite interesting things she said.
Yes, well, I mean, as you say, stop the boats, it's the same old narrative, isn't it? And I think she hasn't got any new solutions other than she's saying she will be considering leaving the European Convention on Human Rights if that's what it takes. Now, it's the same sort of narrative that we heard under the previous government. That said, I think Kemi's team will be quite pleased with this spread because she's got the splash on the Express and she's got a splash on the Sunday Telegraph too.
And Inside Pages I see here on my pile as well. But yeah, carry on.
Which is not a bad spread for her. But ultimately, this is going to be an interesting conference because what can these four leadership candidates say that hasn't been said already? All four of them served senior positions in the previous government, and the question for the voters is going to be, well, why didn't you do it? Or why didn't you advocate for it when you were around that cabinet table?
Well, let's throw in something else that Kemi Badenoch said. This is on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Not all cultures are equally valid, is the implication here. She explained that culture is more than cuisine or clothes, but is also customs, which may be at odds with British values. We cannot be naive and assume immigrants will automatically abandon ancestral ethnic hostilities at the border, or that all cultures are equally valid. They are not. I'm struck, for example, by the number of recent immigrants to the UK who hate Israel. So who's she targeting here, and why doesn't she say it?
Well, there's the point, isn't it? She's saying that nobody's saying it, I'm going to stand up and say it, but doesn't actually say it. I mean, it's very right-wing, it's very much, let's close the borders, we don't want these people in, but yet she hasn't actually got the guts to come out and what she says other people aren't saying. And actually, I mean, a lot of it is just, if you read further on, she says when her family immigrated, it was all about writing letters and it could take weeks, and so they felt really English. But now with WhatsApp, it's completely different and you don't lose your home values. It just seems a load of nonsense. It seems like she's giving people what they want without actually any answers at all.
But it's almost an attack on the idea of multiculturalism and suggesting we do need integration and better integration, which I know many people in this country will probably agree with her about. But, it's the fundamentals of who we are as a nation, isn't it?
It is. And look, I think she's got a point in that there does need to be a deal of integration. My family came to this country or my grandparents came to this country as immigrants and did their best to integrate whilst retaining the heritage, whilst retaining those nice things about different cultures that I think we all benefit from. But what's striking here is the line, I think, where Kemi says, recent immigrants to the UK who hate Israel. And that seems to be pointing at potentially Islamic migration to this country. And I think Tony Blair made an interesting point, which was that we left the European Union, which meant that we had less European migration to this country, and it's been replaced, therefore, by more Islamic immigration from countries in Africa and in Middle East and beyond. So, then Kemi has to answer the question, well, what happens with migration? Because we cannot simply say we're closing the borders, the economy will collapse. And I think that's what Kemi Badenoch needs to say, Robert Jenrick needs to say, what's the alternative? What are you going to do?
Well, it was a shortage of staff that led to the borders being open to the quantity that they did for legal migration in the first place, isn't it?
But they're not coming up with any answers or saying, actually, this is how we would like to deal with people coming in.
They haven't had their conference yet, you don't know, there might be
It just very much says it's easy to stir up hatred and to say, these people come in with these views and it's all wrong. Where's the solutions? What are we going to do about it then?
Just quickly on the Mac cartoon, which I know we haven't blown up, so you can't read it. But anyway, it's delegates arriving with no trousers on, saying, I'm not wearing a suit in case people think a millionaire paid for it. So it's rumbling on, isn't it? Also, from page of the Telegraph as well, Boris Johnson, I'm no longer sure medieval lockdowns defeated COVID. Leon?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, Boris is obviously doing his best to sell his book, which is his prerogative to do so. But he's ultimately saying that he's now sceptical of the role that lockdown lockdowns had in defeating COVID. I think it's
He
going to be...
struggled with it. He called it being a prison. He had this libertarian streak, did he not, which meant it was against the grain for him.
He did it.
Yeah, but he still did it. But ultimately, what else could you have done at that point? You know, we didn't have a blueprint, and maybe that's a failure of planning. But
Yeah,
what
we didn't
else
know
was
what the
there to
international
do?
fatality rate was
We
at
didn't
the
know.
time.
So lockdowns, in retrospect, yes, perhaps they were a little bit over the top. Perhaps they weren't great for the NHS and the backlog. But what was the alternative at that point?
This is entirely reflective of how he was as Prime Minister. One day it's this, one day it's another thing. And I think we can all just be relieved that actually he's just trying to write books now rather than run the country.
And final story, just very quickly as well. I believe my mother chose to end her days at Balmoral. Story on the front page of the Sunday Times, recognising the Palace of Holyrood as well, and talking about the uniquely special place for Scotland there. Anyway, lots more still to come in the next part of our programme. We will take a look at the very latest from Lebanon with the death of Hassan Nasrallah. Back in a moment.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life. Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock. The headlines this evening. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, is confirmed dead after an Israeli airstrike. As the Israeli assault continues, Iran's supreme leader warns that Nasrallah's death will not go unavenged. But Israel calls Nasrallah a murderer and warns its work is not yet done. Also ahead, Starmer under fire as a Labour MP resigns, accusing the Prime Minister's top team of sleaze. A woman who worked on Mohammed Al Fayed's private airline tells Sky News that he sexually assaulted her. And we'll have a full look at the front pages. That's coming up in our press preview at 11:30. Hello, good evening. The leader of Hezbollah is dead. The news confirmed by the Lebanese militant group, and a development which could have seismic consequences for the Middle East. Hassan Nasrallah died following a barrage of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. Iran has warned Israel it will regret its actions, saying all the forces of resistance stand alongside Hezbollah and that Nasrallah's death will not go unavenged. Tonight, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the killing was an historical turning point and that Israel's work is not yet done. Our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, is on the outskirts of Tahrir, where Nasrallah died, and has this report.
It was a night of terror for Lebanon. This was the capital city. The Israeli airstrikes have been plenty and often and terrifying. And there's been no stopping. Tremendous devastation as the Israeli forces hunted down one man, the leader of Hezbollah, who'd been meeting deep underground. Parts of Tahrir in the Beirut southern suburbs have been reduced to ashes. This is a stronghold of the militant group and its loyalists, but it's also home to hundreds of thousands of people. It took until early afternoon for the militant group's television channel to declare their leader's death. Almost immediately, there was another Israeli strike on Beirut.
Just a very big bang has just gone off. Lebanese journalists are getting very tense. There's a lot of shouting and women screaming actually in the background.
Some of Nasrallah's supporters immediately took to the streets. This was the news they'd been dreading. There'll be much mourning, but also anger at his loss, a kick in the guts for the militant group. And already there are early reports of armed men roaming the streets. The militant leader hasn't been seen in public for years. The last time he gave a speech from a secret location was just over a week ago, after the coordinated booby-trap pages and radio explosions used by Hezbollah members went off throughout Lebanon. He said then that Israel had dealt the group an unprecedented blow and committed a massacre against civilians. Nearly 40 people were killed, including women and children, and thousands injured. Hassan Nasrallah has a unique place in Hezbollah, a founding father of the group and political, military and religious leader for more than 3 decades, as well as the leader who beat back the Israelis during 2 invasions. But the Israelis saw Nasrallah as enemy number 1 in Hezbollah, and the multiple strikes which Iran says used powerful bunker busters killed several commanders around him, as well as an Iranian general from the Revolutionary Guards.
The State of Israel yesterday killed the master murderer Hassan Nasrallah. We settled accounts with those responsible for the murder of countless Israelis and many citizens of other countries, including hundreds of Americans and dozens of Frenchmen. Nasrallah was no longer a terrorist, he was the terrorist.
But the airstrikes have sparked considerable terror in the capital, with many in the southern suburbs fleeing with their families en masse, moving from place to place overnight to try to find sanctuary. They camped on beaches, on pavements, along streets, in their cars, anywhere they could find out of the way of the strikes. Emergency shelters were quickly set up on top of those already running. But there's simply not enough to cope with the huge humanitarian need right now, with aid agencies warning the situation is near to catastrophic.
It's really try to manage the chaos. By hours, the situation changed. This center was not here yesterday. Maybe 100 people, you see people moving in and moving out, some people from the street coming in, some people here finding some siblings and moving in the location?
To be honest, no one feels safe anywhere, but no one is even thinking about their personal safety. Looking around us, today we didn't even think if we're coming or not, we just moved.
The Israeli raids are by no means over yet, with no let-up in the airstrikes. Hezbollah is fighting back with volleys of rockets, indicating even the loss of their leader and all this devastation is not going to stop them. Right now, their supporters are consumed with grief. Lebanon's a country with many Hezbollah critics, but its population is bonded right now with a communal worry and fear about the impact this will have on this volatile region. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Beirut.
Well, Hassan Nasrallah had led Hezbollah for 3 decades. He took charge of the Lebanese militant group after his predecessor, Abbas al-Musawi, was assassinated in an Israeli airstrike in 1992. Nasrallah led the 34-day armed conflict in Lebanon, northern Israel and the Golan Heights in 2006. Israel then, of course, unable to capture or kill him. Over the last 3 decades, Nasrallah became a trusted advisor and ally of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Nasrallah is the most significant of the Hezbollah figures killed by Israel, which has destroyed the top tiers of the organisation, designated as terrorist by governments, including the UK. The entire operational leadership of Hezbollah is now severely downgraded, limiting its ability to command its forces. So with Israel tonight warning that its work is not yet done, what does the future hold for the Middle East? Our security and defence editor Deborah Haynes has more.
The clearest sign yet that Israel's war with Hezbollah is about to expand even further. Israeli tanks on the border with Lebanon, poised for a possible ground assault. The military chief warns of challenging days ahead.
The IDF is at peak readiness, both in defence and offence, across all fronts, and is prepared for whatever comes next.
A day after the killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Israel is seizing the momentum in a reversal of fortunes from last October. These reservists have just been mobilised for operations in the north. But the goal here doesn't just seem to be about securing Israeli borders. It's also about restoring deterrence in a region where military strength matters. The big question is how Hezbollah and its chief backer Iran will respond. On the streets of Tehran, there's anger and sorrow. Iran has declared 5 days of mourning. The Supreme Leader had a message of his own for Israel, read out on state television.
The entire resistance forces across the region stand by Hezbollah and support it. Resistance forces, led by the proud Hezbollah, are the ones who will decide the fate of this region.
Israelis, though, applaud their country's operations. Just listen to the response when a lifeguard announces Nasrallah has been killed. There's resilience, too, in the face of threats.
We're at the beach in Tel Aviv. People here were just enjoying the evening sunshine, and then, as you can hear, an air raid siren started. And you can see behind me people now moving, not panicking, they'd done this before, but moving to shelter.
Israel is displaying a growing sense of confidence following the collapse of Hezbollah's chain of command. In Arabic, it's written, "To be continued." Deborah Haynes, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
Well, tonight, the US President Joe Biden said that the death of Hassan Nasrallah is a measure of justice for his many victims. Mr. Biden also insisted that the aim of the United States is now to de-escalate the conflicts in both Lebanon and Gaza through diplomatic means. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has more details from Washington.
Yeah, I think what the American president is saying is predictable. I mean, Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organisation in America, in Britain and other Western nations. It has killed hundreds of Americans and French nationals from other Western countries. So I think it's natural that Western leaders and the American president leading amongst them should express some sense of satisfaction that Hassan Nasrallah has been killed. But also I think Joe Biden is kind of trying to show solidarity with the Israelis for rather strategic reasons as well. He's saying the Israelis have a right to self-defense, but he's also warning Iran from escalating or using this as an opportunity to expand and exploit the conflict. And obviously it's crucial for America to stand foursquare with Israel, because any sort of gap between them in the minds of American policymakers could tempt the Iranians to come in and try and drive a wedge between the two. So it's very important for the Americans to show solidarity. That the logic that the Israeli Prime Minister is making for this assassination is partly a tactical one. He's saying that Hassan Nasrallah was not prepared to end his attacks on Israel until the war in Gaza was over. And when that became clear, he felt that there was no choice but to kill the terrorist of terrorists, as he called Hassan Nasrallah. Now, whether the Americans follow that logic or not, it's not clear, but publicly they're showing support for the Israelis. I think behind the scenes, though, there will be a strain in the relationship and there will be some anger and frustration, I think, because it seems while the Israelis were talking about and apparently agreeing in private to the idea of a ceasefire, they were planning a much bigger escalation in this war. And in terms of a diplomatic solution, well, if you talk to the diplomats from the region, as I have been all week in the United Nations General Assembly in New York, they're in despair, really, because they say if Israel didn't take this opportunity that had been forged by the G7 countries and 3 Middle Eastern countries to seize and agree to a ceasefire, there's very little hope of de-escalation now. In the words of one senior diplomat who knows the Israelis and the Americans very well, he said what the Israelis have done is a kick in the teeth to Joe Biden, who would have wanted more than anything else a ceasefire, a reduction in tension and conflict in the Middle East in the last month or so of his presidency, and instead he's been given anything but.
Dominic Waghorn there, keeping an eye certainly on what is happening in Lebanon. In the meantime, to domestic matters, the Labour MP Rosie Duffield has quit the party, mounting a blistering attack on the Prime Minister. She has accused Sir Keir Starmer of staggering hypocrisy for accepting thousands of pounds worth of gifts while scrapping winter fuel payments. Let's get more from Serena Barker-Singh.
Well, I think any backbencher quitting the government, quitting the party, not even 3 months into a new government is shocking. Rosie Duffield has been open with her discontent towards the party for some time. She's levelled criticism at Keir Starmer himself, but it's the tone and the timing of this letter which is remarkable. The words are savage and it's all directed towards the Prime Minister. The timing as well. I mean, the government have been waiting, hoping that this donations row would die down. Rosie Duffield is determined to keep that alive. She's written, the government is one of sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice. Of this government is off the scale. And she says his policies, Sir Keir Starmer's policies, are cruel and unnecessary. She says she's linking what he's doing in government with the apparent donations and gifts that he's accepted. She says someone with far above average wealth choosing to keep the Conservatives' 2-child limit to benefit payments, which entrenches children in poverty while inexplicably accepting expensive personal gifts of designer suits and glasses, is entirely undeserving of holding the title of Labour Prime Minister. So, as you say, a scathing attack there. Now, we approached the party tonight. They said they're not going to comment, but this is important for 2 reasons. As I said, it's keeping this donations row in the news agenda, something the government had hoped they'd quashed last week. But also remember that the Conservatives were punished by voters at the ballot box this general election because of their chaos and disunity, things that Labour pointed out to voters. And Keir Starmer won on a platform saying country first, politics second. A defection like this so early on risks sending a message that perhaps they are promising some more of the same.
And for more politics, do tune in tomorrow morning, as all 4 Conservative leadership candidates will be on Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips. That is from 8:30 a.m. ahead of the Conservative Party conference. Now, a woman who worked on Mohammed Al Fayed's private airline has told Sky News that she was sexually assaulted by the former Harrods boss. Jerry McDonald's allegations are the latest in a series of claims about Al Fayed, who died last year at the age of 94. Sky's Matthew Thompson reports.
It was supposed to be the job of her dreams. After several years working for commercial airlines, Jerry McDonald moved from her Cheshire home to the southeast to become an air hostess for Mohammed Al Fayed's own private airline. Almost instantly, the dream became a nightmare.
He'd sort of come from behind his desk to you, and then he'd kind of give you a hug. But it was kind of like a granddad, family member, you kind of feel at the time. You're like, okay. And then he'll sort of just give you a kiss on the cheek. And then it goes from a kiss on the cheek to 2 kisses on the cheek. But then there was still nothing really odd up until probably my 3rd flight that I did to Paris. And I remember sitting on a chair, as I am now, and not having any idea that he suddenly just appeared behind me and he just placed his hand straight into my blouse.
Ultimately, she says her refusal to give in to Al Fayed's advances cost her job.
He just told me to sit down on the settee, brought me a drink over. He sat next to me, really closely, uncomfortably close. And then he just literally grabbed my head really firmly and just pushed himself on me, started to kiss me. And I just instinctively kind of pushed his shoulder to kind of get away, and he just completely turned on me, just started swearing and just told me, you're a stupid girl, what did you think I'd, invited you here for? I want to have sex with you. You should take my offer because you're not going to amount to anything. Just horrible. And then he just said, OK, well, I don't want you to work on my jet anymore.
We asked Harrods Aviation for a comment on these allegations. They're yet to respond, but Harrods Managing Director Michael Ward has previously said that this was a shameful period in the business's history. The Harrods of today is unrecognisable to Harrods under his ownership. As detailed new information has come to light over the past 18 months, the business has established a settlement process designed in consultation with independent external experts in personal injury litigation. We encourage former colleagues to contact us using this process so that we can provide the support and recourse they need. There are now dozens of women who claim to have been Al Fayed's victims. More stories seem to appear by the day. And as they do, the questions mount for those around him. Who knew what, when, and how was it allowed to continue? Matthew Thompson, Sky News in Essex.
At least 52 people have died after Hurricane Helene swept across America's southeastern states. Tonight, officials have warned record-breaking river flooding is ongoing in some parts. More than 3 million homes and businesses remain without power, and President Biden said the devastation was overwhelming. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this report.
This is 600 miles inland from where Hurricane Helene hit. But in the mountains of eastern Tennessee, the flooding is catastrophic. More than 50 people were stranded for hours on the roof of this hospital, engulfed by water. With no way of getting to them from the ground, this was the only option.
It came in on the hospital. We had patients in the hospital. The chief of police, along with my nephew Josh Allis, and some more, was able to get the patients to the top floor and on the roof. And I was very concerned that we was going to lose the hospital.
And in Asheville, North Carolina, a tourist and university town now completely cut off. Rivers overflowing, straining dams threatening to fail. This unusually large hurricane was causing havoc in Georgia too.
We got you. 911, they're coming.
Weatherman Bob Van Dillen breaking off his live report to rescue a woman trapped in her car.
It's a situation. We will get back to you in a little bit. I'm going to go see if I can help this lady out a little bit more, you guys. I'll be back.
And then there is Bob carrying her out. So for
later, reuniting her with family.
You good? Yeah, don't. Yeah, man. Hey, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Anytime. I'll do it again.
They're counting the cost of yet another hurricane in the beach towns of Florida, wondering if this life is worth it. Helen has inflicted such loss on such a colossal scale. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Florida.
The King has been limiting his public appearances as he continues his treatment for cancer. And so it was inevitable that he would be asked if he was keeping well when he met people at the 25th anniversary celebrations for the Scottish Parliament today. The King told politicians at Holyrood that Scotland is a uniquely special place for the royal family, as our correspondent Dan Whitehead reports.
A royal fanfare for a celebration of Scottish democracy. 25 years ago, the King attended the opening of the Parliament here as the Prince of Wales. Now he returns alongside the Queen to mark a quarter century of Holyrood.
We are all, at the end of each day, united by our love of Scotland, because of its natural beauty, of course, but also because of its strength of character, based as it is on the extraordinary diversity of its peoples, whose range of ideas, skills, energy, passions, and frequently deeply held beliefs never cease to inspire me.
Leaders past and present filled the chamber as the royals enjoyed a spectacle of Scottish culture. This was a significant public appearance for the King as he continues treatment for cancer.
The King was looking extremely well today as he arrived at the Scottish Parliament, beaming with a determination to go in and mark the 25th anniversary. Met as he was by the presiding officer, he knew that the importance of the Scottish Parliament has been enormous, particularly to a nation in a time of change, but also because he cares so much about Scotland, its history, its traditions, and the direction it's choosing to go.
As he met members of the community, many keen to check in on how he is. Are you keeping well, one asks, a nod from His Majesty. The King's public duties are now more limited, but this was an important visit. He is no stranger to Scotland, a place close to his heart and the royal family as a whole. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
Well, we've got the sport next. How Liverpool took full advantage of a slip-up by Premier League champions Manchester City.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues. The public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon. The British detectives are planning to meet forensic experts, academics, and even witch doctors.
I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
I've never murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
The parole board has to decide if Bronson needs to be kept locked up for the safety of the public. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
To the sport now, here's Raoul.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
I backed Arsenal at the start of the season because I just felt as though when a team's hunting you down, eventually they get there more often than not when they're getting closer and closer. And Arsenal, I thought today felt like a monumental, defining moment in this journey that Arsenal are on of trying to get to a league title. You know, 2 seasons ago, they quite simply fell apart in the last 10 games. Last season, they go so close, and then you think, right, OK, they're learning, they're maturing. And some of their play, by the way, in the second half, not just the defensive play, but you know, you think of sometimes you used to admire the old Italian teams or the old sort of, if you like, teams in Europe that would be able to get through and waste time and do things that frustrated the life out of you, but because they were so experienced. So they demonstrated that in the second half and just didn't get over the line. So, look, you know, it's nothing to do with wanting Manchester City to not win the title or Arsenal to win the title. It's, in fact, we're effectively neutral with these two teams. But you just think today and tonight, where will we be in April and May with this game? Will we be talking about going back to that final minute and what happened with the John Stones? Or will we be thinking that City win the title by 1 point and that moment determines it? It's ridiculous because there'll be drop points and there'll be mistakes and there'll be lots of victories before the end of the season, but it is that type of situation when you're up against Pep Guardiola. It makes you feel that way.
And there are other teams, Jamie. You're allowed to mention Liverpool, who were top this morning. How are you feeling about the title race?
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit similar to last season, where Liverpool are just slightly behind these two teams, and you know, improving and looking to maybe really go for it next season. And you know the manager knows everything about his squad and he looks exactly who he wants to bring in, because he hasn't really bought anyone. I'm just trying to think. Chiesa's more of a squad player. They brought a goalkeeper from Valencia. That's more for next season. So it's still last season's team. I still think Liverpool are the third best team. But going back to these two, I just still always when I look at the squads and I just look at that attack Manchester City have got, and you know, De Bruyne doesn't play today. I know Odegaard doesn't play, to be fair, as well, but I just think they've got a little bit more in those attacking areas, and you know, I just think they've got a little bit more. And if Arsenal would have held on, it would have been a set-piece goal. And we know they're amazing at set-pieces. We saw it last week. They win the game at Tottenham. But you can't win the game on set-pieces every week. You know, sometimes it's got to, you know, the quality of your players or the finish. And I just think Manchester City have the edge there.
It is just worth mentioning the reason we were watching the second half like that was because of the sending off just before half-time, which obviously completely changed the dynamic of that second half, which is disappointing because we wanted to see the game 11v11. We didn't want to see Rodri go off either. But I think that, and Arsenal will make the point, I'm sure, around the Doku, you know, kicking the ball away. They're absolutely right to. I think we made it at the time. I think Michael Oliver had as difficult a first half as he will have for a long time because he's, you know, quite simply the number one referee that we have. But it was a tough game out there for him in that first half. You could feel the heat coming upon him. But I did think that the sending off was a sending off just based upon the fact that at the start of the season, Again, I'm not quite sure why they've toughened up on this rule. I sometimes think they create a problem for themselves, like the PGMOL, or is the sort of, is it IFAB, the referee's body, when they create. I'm not sure there was a big problem with kicking the ball away, because of the fact now that we can add time on. If you kick the ball away for 20 seconds, I mean, I'm not saying that if it's ridiculous to kicking it away, which, you know, I don't know what you think about it. Now this almost like sort of like zero tolerance towards kicking the ball away, even if it's not nudged away a little bit.
It's delaying the restart. It's not.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, coming up next, we have the press preview tonight, joined by the political and PR consultant, Leon Emirali, and the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder. Looking at the papers, of course, including this on the front page of the Sunday Times, the headline for the paper, Israel strikes a huge blow, but braces for revenge. That and plenty more when we come back.